Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grimwit with Dimwits. I'm T.
And I'm Blondie.
Sounding very, very happy for some reason.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either. Your story is nothing to be happy about. It sounds kind of complex and a little bit mysterious.
It is definitely a lot of moving parts, put it that way.
I'm curious to hear how it all plays out. And you just kind of gave me a quick overview on it, and it sounds really, really interesting.
I gave you the Reader's Digest. And I'm sure sometimes our listeners are going, can you just give us the Reader's Digest version?
And I'm sure some of them are saying, what the heck is a Reader's Digest?
Oh my God, that's true. I didn't even realize that.
You know, we had it right there with the old TV guide.
I remember that. When we were the remotes.
That's when we were the remotes. We were the rabbit ears.
That's right.
Back in the good old days.
That was just a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I remember it. I still have a TV where I have to hold and put a hanger in there and I have to hold it.
I don't have the TV on the TV anymore, so we're good.
Oh, you're not living then.
You remember that? The big, huge one always died, so you had the small little black and white on top.
But it made a perfect table for the newer, smaller one.
That's right.
Come on. That just made sense all day long.
All right. So we are just aging ourselves here.
Yep.
Okay. So shall we get into this?
Let's get into it. I want to hear.
Like T said, this story is very mysterious and complex. You know, we haven't said in a long time.
Don't start messing this up, okay? If you're going to say it right.
Okay, I'll say it right the way I would say it. All right. Well, let's get our grim on, shall we?
Boo.
Can you imagine growing up and working in a job that you not only love, but was fun and glamorous? 20-year-old Jane Carver went to stewardess school in 1969, where she was about to make her dream come true.
Remember when they were called stewardesses?
1969.
They are no longer that. They are flight attendants.
She met great new friends, got to travel the world, and had a wonderful time doing it. Janie, as she was known by her stew friends, Kathy Berry, Karen Noteboom, and June Marnie, were that group of girls that always flew together, explored the world, and had a lively time doing it. So much so, they became known as the Yayas. Every time I say or see the Yayas, I have to giggle.
Doesn't that mean like grandma or something in, I don't know, in some other language? No, because I had a friend and he would say his Yaya.
Okay.
I want to say it was like from Sweden or something, but anyway, I should have done some research before I mentioned that.
Okay, let me know when you're done.
Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Janie was a fun-loving, spunky girl with a twinkle in her eye that everyone was drawn to. Jane met and married Al Carver somewhere between 1972 to 1975. I couldn't find the exact year, but at the time the story was done, they had two sons, Clifford and Justin. It was based on their ages. Jane and Al moved into a community in Orange County called Fountain Valley. Fountain Valley is a cookie-cutter city that was carefully planned out in sort of a grid. There was a joke among the community and local cops, which was, if you go home drunk, make sure you walk into the right house. And that takes cookie-cutter to a whole new level.
I've actually heard of that, though. People going into the wrong houses when they live in these, what are they called?
I know what you're talking about. Where there's like 4 model homes in each track. In the tracks.
My gosh. Track homes. There
track
you
homes,
go.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, when they live in track homes, they pull up to the wrong house.
Fountain Valley was a place where families wanted to grab their own piece of the Orange County dream. Almost all of Jane's friends lived in Fountain Valley, so this made it easy for them to commute to work and make plans with their families to get together. Al Carver was a director of operations at a healthcare company and a bit of a conservative man. He took a more tentative approach to things. Jane, on the other hand, was adventurous and outgoing. This is the epitome of opposites attract, and even balance each other.
Nice.
Clifford Carver, describing his mom, said, quote, "She was just an incredible mom, really fun-loving and laughing all the time and joking and just making the best of life. You can watch from the outside and just be like, wow, she's got it," end quote.
What a nice thing for a son to say about his mom. You don't hear that much.
No, he actually had very nice things to say about his mom.
Nice.
The Carvers travel a lot, going international, and with Jane being a flight attendant, she did get those flight perks. I would love to have some of those flight attendant perks, well, without actually being a flight attendant, especially these days. It's got to be a tough job between COVID and the Karens and Kevins. I don't think I'd want to do it in this time. Maybe in the 70s, but not now. But I do want the perks.
I would only have the patience for COVID, no Karens, and definitely no Kevins. That's not happening.
I've seen those videos with them on planes. My goodness.
Ridiculous.
Justin Carver recalls, quote, "She was very spontaneous in her approach to travel. We were studying the presidents or capitals or something like that, and she was working and going on a trip to Washington, D.C. She was like, hey, we're not going to school today, and I'm going to show you the real thing, so let's go." I like that way of learning.
No kidding.
I would take that over sitting in a classroom any day.
Right? Instead of looking at the book pictures, it's like, here it is. We're at the Smithsonian.
Jane was an avid runner, using it to relax and, frankly, just to keep moving. She would sometimes go with Al or take the dog, but on this particular Saturday morning, June 10th, 1995, the 46-year-old wife and mother went out by herself for her usual 4-mile run around Miles Square Park. As she came back to her block with her house in view, a man came out of nowhere. He stopped on the sidewalk, not saying a word, pulled out a gun, and shot her in the face. He calmly walked back to his car and drove off.
Oh my gosh.
Brutal.
That is, wow.
Hearing the sirens, Al goes outside to see what's going on and finds his wife just a few hundred yards away from their home, on the ground, mortally wounded. Al Carver said, quote, "Imagine what it's like to see your wife lie dying in a flower bed. Just don't understand anything anymore," end quote.
That's horrifying.
I can't imagine just sitting there not being able to do anything.
And trying to figure out what happened. Why?
Joni Owen, a friend of the Carvers, said, quote, "Justin had been asleep through this whole thing. He was 14 years old at the time, and that just broke my heart. I can't imagine how Al possibly could tell Justin about his mother," end quote. That would absolutely break my heart.
Gosh, that would break anybody's heart.
Their other son, Clifford, was 20 years old at that time and was going to Oregon State University. At the time of the shooting, he remembers, quote, "I got that phone call, and I felt like I was racing to the airport, but I felt like I couldn't drive fast enough. Everything was in slow motion," end quote. Since it was the weekend, people were home and witnessed this horrific slaying. They couldn't believe what just happened, but were able to describe the man wearing a brown or tweed sports coat with a high-neck shirt, dark pants, about 30 to 40 years old, with a receding hairline. A fairly decent composite was able to be made of the suspect. They also told police that he drove a 1978 to 1984 two-door white hatchback.
This guy was really bold to come out in just broad daylight.
On a Saturday morning, you figure everybody's out doing their yards, stuff in the garage, washing cars. I mean,
wow.
He had to have seen these people.
Of course, and didn't care, it sounds like. Wow.
There was a total of 6 witness statements, and they were all basically the same. Lieutenant Kim Brown, former lead detective, Fountain Valley PD, stated, quote, "There wasn't much to go on at the time, evidence-wise. We had to rely on what the witness statements were," end quote. More than 1,000 tips poured in, but unfortunately didn't lead anywhere. The city was shocked. Murders in Orange County were rare at the time, let alone in a small community like Fountain Valley. Yet on this Saturday morning, a woman was executed in broad daylight. It wasn't a robbery. Nothing was taken. detectives started looking into their finances, looking for any clue or possible reason for the shooting. Since there was no clear motive, the investigators have to question everyone, starting with her husband, Al Carver. Isn't that always they question the spouse first?
That's who I'd question first.
Was there some struggle in Al and Jane's marriage? Did he have something to do with Jane's death? During the interview, detectives had to ask if he had anything to do with her murder, or did he know of someone that would have wanted to kill Jane? Lieutenant Kim Brown acknowledged he was clearly devastated. He was very open right from the beginning. They even performed a polygraph test, which he passed. Detectives believed that he had nothing to do with it. The questions then turned to her friends, the people that she may have confided in. The police interviewed them one by one. Was there anyone who may have wanted to harm Jane? Did she have problems at work? Or was there possibly a passenger that bothered her? Her friends tried to recall conversations with Jane, thinking of her mentioning any problems or issues, but coming up with nothing. Jeff Bosher, former reporter, LA Times, noted, quote, "You have an idea what the suspect looks like, but they don't have a motive," end quote. Kathy Berry, friend and coworker, said, "From witness statements, we were told that this person had been seen in the area prior to the incident, so therefore we considered that it could possibly be a stalking situation." Jane's family and friends were shattered and wanted answers. But in this small community, residents were worried for their safety. In the same sense, there was a lot of speculation going around, most of which centered around Al, who had already been cleared. Jeff Bosher said, "They say there is a thin line between love and hate, but there's an even thinner line between marriage and murder." Don't tell my husband that.
Don't tell mine either.
Some of the speculation, even though he was cleared, was people thinking that Al did it.
And when nothing else makes sense, I get that. But this poor guy, I mean, if he didn't do it, he's already going through it. And now he's got all these people thinking he's a murderer on top of that.
Well,
that sucks.
He's going through it. He's got to deal with his 2 young sons and, not even knowing why.
Right. How do you clear your name when you've done nothing wrong?
Exactly. After the funeral, trying to cope with what had happened, Jane's friends decided they wanted to help the police and hopefully find some answers. They got together, and with the composite witness sketch, they made thousands of flyers offering a $25,000 reward for any information leading to the murderer. Convinced that someone knew who he was, they covered Orange County with flyers. They would meet every Saturday at Miles Square Park and go from business to business, asking to post a flyer. Her friends even spoke to the press regularly to keep her story alive. Detectives said they kept Jane's memory at the forefront. They started raising money for the reward. Her employer, United Airlines, even donated $10,000 for information. The reward went up to $45,000. That's a lot of money in 1995.
Heck of a lot of money. And you know what? How wonderful that she has so many people fighting for her, including her employer. It just says a lot about her.
It's a lot about her and about the time as well, the time in life. Jeffrey Bosher said, quote, "If crimes were solved by concern, the murder of Jane Carver would have been an open and shut case within a day. You have as much money as you want, but in this case, the police can't even buy a clue. They had no leads at all," end quote.
Wow.
Even with the efforts of the police, Jane's friends, and the community, 10 months goes by with still no answers, and unfortunately, the case goes cold. Lieutenant Brown says, quote, "The case does go cold, and it wanes. We were very hopeful that we might get that one break to help us," end quote. On April 10th, 1996, close to a year later, and about 30 miles away in San Clemente, 51-year-old James Wengert, owner of the financial investigation firm called Financial Search, was leaving work, walking through the parking garage going to his car. A man approached James, raised a gun, shot him in the face, and walked away. Miraculously, James survived.
Okay, wait a minute. Does this guy know the other woman that was killed?
Well, you know what? Let's stay tuned and find out.
Oh, I'm like, what? Again?
Take my
Keep
hand.
going.
Let's go. Take my hand and we'll continue with the story.
Let's skip into the next paragraph.
Captain Christine Murray, retired from the Orange County Sheriff Department, said, quote, "The suspect did not ask for money. In fact, said nothing to Wengert, but instead shot him in the face without comment or warning, and then turned around and left. Execution-style shooting is very unusual in Orange County. My lieutenant made an off-the-cuff remark. The only one he could recall had occurred almost a year earlier. A jogger, Jane Carver, that was killed in Fountain Valley." End quote. Once James Wengert was able to be interviewed, the detectives asked him if he saw or had any idea who tried to kill him. James did not recognize the man. However, he did mention Coleman Allen. Coleman Allen was the owner of Premium Commercial Services Corp. In Huntington Beach that specializes in making loans to small businesses.
Okay, wait a minute. I have a question. Like legit, or is he like a loan shark?
Why don't we just follow the story?
Oh.
I'm going to hurt you right now.
At least you know I'm paying attention.
James went on to say that he had had some troublesome business dealings with Allen, and James thought he might be responsible.
Notice I didn't say words. I just went, so I didn't interrupt.
And I appreciate that so much. James had needed some money for his business to keep it going and had borrowed $400,000 from Allen.
Jiminy Christmas, that's a lot of money back then.
In return, Allen required him to take out a life insurance policy that was almost 3 times the amount of the loan. James was also to list Coleman Allen as the beneficiary. That's the kind of guy Allen was.
That's a huge return on your money. I'm writing this down. Is that wrong?
Go ahead. Well, and to me, it's almost asking to, for a better term, get whacked. I mean, yeah. You're taking out this life insurance policy where the guy that's giving you the loan is the beneficiary. That's nuts.
Yeah. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Who does that?
Well, apparently, James Wengert. And I did find it a little intriguing that Wengert owned a financial investment firm, yet had to borrow $400,000. Why? I wondered what exactly financial investigation was, so I looked it up. A financial investigation is also known as forensic accounting. This type of investigation is used in corporate investigations, theft, embezzlement, money laundering, tax evasion, asset searches, criminal, and many other types of investigations. So if this is what he does for a living, what happened to his business that he has to borrow $400,000?
If this is what he does for a living, how did he okay someone to have a life insurance policy? Like, this is the guy who should know how this works. He's not very smart.
And apparently that's why he had to borrow $400,000.
You know, you and I may not be able to foresee something like this happening right off the bat, but this guy definitely should have. This is actually pretty crazy.
I do agree with that. Apparently, you and I are not the only ones that thought so about taking out a life insurance policy. The detectives were seeing huge church bells go off, almost like something you'd see in a movie. Quote, "The other 2 law enforcement agencies in Southern California had active investigations targeting Coleman Allen for fraud and financial crimes in a very sophisticated way," end quote, stated Captain Murray. With these loans of hope to save their businesses came high interest rates and payment demands shortly after the loan was made. Jeff Bosher's take on this, quote, "There's an air of Tony Soprano to all of this. It was very clear when the money was due, and it was also made clear that if the money wasn't in, there was going to be consequences," end quote.
Yep.
Besides taking out life insurance policies for his clients, making himself and his company the beneficiary, Coleman Allen would use the loans made to his clients to blackmail them. Captain Murray said about the life insurance policies, So now you have a situation where someone is going to spend the rest of their life paying this money. And then when they're done paying them, they're going to die, and then they are going to pay him some more. I still can't get over the fact that they're doing this life insurance policy, making him beneficiary.
Yes, you're just signing your own death sentence.
I can't believe they didn't see that either.
They had to have seen it. I mean, how desperate were these people? How do you miss that?
They were very desperate.
But the writing's on the wall. Like you're trying to save a company that you're not going to be around to save.
Mm-hmm. Here's the part that is actually unbelievably so movie-like. When the detectives went to interview Coleman Allen, they learned he had died of a massive heart attack a couple days before Wengert was shot. Isn't that just a kick in the pants?
So then who killed Weingart?
Let's find out.
Oh, dear Lord. Okay. I'm like, the guy's dead.
No, Weingart didn't die. He survived.
Oh, that's right. Okay, my bad. Okay, but wait a minute. But then who tried to have him killed?
Why didn't we see?
Oh, my Lord. Are we still holding hands and skipping around?
We are still holding hands.
Okie dokie.
I'm the story lady with the big hat. You're sitting on the carpet listening to me.
Oh, my God. Okay, I'm all in.
Okay. Thinking about all of this, you have Jane Carver, a flight attendant, living in Fountain Valley, randomly shot by her home. No clue who or why. Then you have James Wengert, a businessman at his business in San Clemente, also shot. No clue who or why. Police are looking for connections between how two people who didn't know each other were executed in the exact same manner, about a year apart, especially since they weren't able to talk to Coleman Allen. Then about 10 days after the shooting of James Wengert, Coleman Allen's widow gets a phone call from a man identifying himself as the shooter of James Wengert. He said that her husband, Coleman Allen, had directed him to kill James, and he was looking for payment. She immediately contacts the police to inform them of this phone call. The shooter said his name was Paul Allen. Let's just be on the down low with this. He's not trying to hide.
Jeez.
The detectives begin to go through Allen's business, his records, and did in fact find a connection to Allen. Jeff Bosher said Allen was a man who was in desperate straits. Allen owned an auto parts store and also owes money to Coleman Allen. He's borrowed $30,000 with 36% interest compounded annually. This is a man who is under the gun. I mean, literally, the interest would be a third of the loan.
It's more than a third of the loan. That's ridiculous.
And the way Coleman Allen worked is he wanted his money immediately. It was just crazy.
You're making a deal with the devil. Makes no sense.
It gets better. Could Allen kill someone to clear his debt? A photographic lineup was shown to James Wengert, and he positively identified Paul Allen as the man who walked up to him and shot him in the face. This may be the break and the hope that investigators need to start connecting the dots and figuring this all out. Allen was brought in and questioned about the shooting. Captain Murray's interview. Now, I love this interaction. During the interview of Paul Allen, he continued to deny any involvement in the shooting of James Wengert. So I challenged him on that, and in fact told him that James Wengert had not died on the garage floor. This got a visible reaction from Allen, who seemed to be surprised. He composed himself rather quickly and then said, "Well, it's a racial thing. Us black guys must look all alike to an old white dude." It was then that I reminded him I never described James Wengert to him. The only reason he knew he was an old white dude was because he was the shooter. Talk about incriminating yourself. Oopsie.
Wow. He's not even good at this.
He's not good at this at all. After confirming that Paul Allen was the shooter of James Wengert, it is relayed to the Fountain Valley detectives. This is the break they were hoping to get, and to finally have some answers about Jane Carver's murder. The detectives show the photographic lineup to the witnesses of Jane's murder, and much to their disappointment, Allen wasn't the same man. Once again, they are back to not knowing who and why this happened. That's got to be so soul-crushing.
Yeah, boy, I'm sure they thought they had their guy.
They absolutely did. Lieutenant Kim Brown said, quote, "The case consumes you. I'm thinking of the innocent victim, mother of 2 children, and loved by everybody with absolutely no reason to be killed. This guy has to be out there. He just has to be out there." End quote. Trying to stay positive, Justin Carver says, "And we were confident in the people that were investigating and sticking with it. We really were. We knew they were adamant about catching this person, but at the same time, without any leads, it was tough. We knew it was tough for them." Back in San Clemente, Captain Murray continues to review the transcripts of Paul Aline's interrogation, looking for any information that may lead to something they can follow up with in Jane Carver's killing. Going through page by page, she comes across a little piece of information that hits her like a ton of bricks. Captain Murray recalls, quote, "I found this little nugget of information, maybe a little piece of hope for Fountain Valley and Jane Carver. Near the end of the tape, Pauline made an offhand remark to my partner that Coleman Allen was mad at a guy named Leonard Mundy because Leonard shot the wrong person once." End quote.
Okay.
Complex.
This guy really isn't smart.
He's just naming names.
Thank goodness for stupidity.
This is a guy who he took the loan out because he had his little auto parts business that wasn't doing well, and he was trying to make better for himself, and he got under the gun.
I don't feel sorry for anybody who decides to kill, no less kill an innocent person for money. I feel sorry for nobody.
I feel sorry for nobody that kills anybody. But you're saying he just wasn't smart, and I think this is an example of him not being smart. Yeah.
I still don't feel sorry for him. I mean, you can be dumb as a rock. You still know killing is not okay.
You would hope. So how many loans, life insurance policies, and unpaid clients did Coleman Allen have? Did he send clients to kill other clients to get his loans repaid? With this new lead, detectives started going through premium commercials documents, looking to see if they could find the name Leonard Mundy, and was there any connection to Jane Carver in them. Detectives do in fact find a business dealing between Leonard Mundy and Coleman Allen. Leonard Mundy also owns a small business that was trying to stay afloat. Mundy took out 2 $40,000 loans a month apart from Allen. This is another man that has a loan that he will never be able to pay with Allen's repayment practices. Before this, Mundy had no criminal record and wasn't a violent man. But just like Aline, desperate people do desperate things. San Clemente detectives asked Fountain Valley PD to do another photographic lineup with witnesses of Jane Carver's shooting, adding Leonard Mundy's picture. Lieutenant Kim Brown, quote, "When that photo came up, there was no doubt that this was our suspect," end quote. There was also no question with the witnesses that Mundy was the guy.
Wow.
Now that they have a suspect, Fountain Valley had probable cause to get a search warrant of their own for Premium Commercial and found documents identical to the ones Pauline had with Coleman Allen, the same ones Allen used to convince Aline to shoot James Wengert. It sounds like Coleman Allen had this loan requirement request on repeat. Here's a piece of work.
What a disgusting human being, yeah.
Lieutenant Kim Brown said, quote, "Cole Allen was found to have written off the uncollectible loans, and Cole Allen didn't write off loans. Cole Allen got his money back. It was all about the money," end quote. Among the Premium Commercial files that were seized was a file showing James Wengert and his wife, Margaret, who goes by Peggy, living in San Clemente. Captain Murray reached out to the Wengerts. What was found out was the Wengerts owned a home in Fountain Valley, and this is where they were actually living at the time of James' shooting. At the time of receiving the loan from Coleman Allen, James Wengert had put up their home in Fountain Valley as collateral. James had done this without Peggy's knowledge or signature. However, that didn't stop him. He forged Peggy's signature. A forensic investigator, what is he thinking?
What the heck is wrong with these people?
It's a whole lot of I don't know. Captain Murray stated, Allen had been attempting to seize that house against the debt Wengert had accrued. As a result, Peggy filed a civil lawsuit against Cole Allen for fraudulent business practices, and that suit was underway in June of 1995. By all accounts, Cole Allen was livid and incensed that Peggy Wengert had the audacity to sue him.
Wow, he's got some bolas.
I looked at the calendar and realized Peggy Wengert was due in court to testify against Cole Allen 3 to 4 days after Jane Carver's death. Could that have in any way contributed to the murder of Jane Carver? In the Wengert file that was seized from Premium Commercial, along with their addresses, was an old, grainy driver's license photo that had been Xeroxed of Peggy Wengert. This is when investigators realized that Peggy was the actual target that Saturday morning in June a year earlier. The question still remains, why was Jane Carver murdered? She had no apparent relationship or connection with Coleman Allen, the Wengerts, Leonard Mundy, or Paula Leen. When Captain Murray went to the Wengerts' home in Fountain Valley, she was traveling on the 405 freeway and accidentally missed the first Brookhurst off-ramp and took the second Brookhurst off-ramp. In doing this, it put her going the wrong direction. She began to wonder if Leonard Mundy had done the exact same thing.
Wow, what are the chances, right?
I wasn't sure, but I guess at that time, that particular off-ramp was actually pretty crazy. It was very common to do that, to go the wrong way.
Interesting.
Fountain Valley is a master planned community with residences and streets that look alike. The north side and south side of the 405 freeway was basically a mirror image.
I didn't know that. That's super interesting.
Mm-hmm. A theory started to form. What if Leonard Mundy exited on the wrong off-ramp and ended up heading in the wrong direction from where the Wengerts' house was? The directions he was possibly given were to turn right at the park, drive past the park, turn left at the first street, and there's the house that Jane Carver just happened to live in. He saw a woman coming down the street that resembled Peggy Wengert and made the assumption it was the same person and shot her. Ironically, it wasn't a theory. That's exactly what happened. Justin Carver said at the time, quote, "The truth came out, and it was nothing short of shocking. Something I would have never guessed," end quote. She literally died because he got off the wrong off-ramp.
That's insane. Wow.
So sad. I mean, you don't want Peggy Wengert to die either, but just some person that had absolutely nothing to do with any of it.
Just by living on the other mirrored side of the community and having blonde hair.
And the picture that they had, her hair was short and Jane's was blonde and Peggy's was highlighted.
Wow.
They didn't really look alike, but if it was a grainy picture and it was Xeroxed, could have been a resemblance.
Who sends somebody out to do a killing with a grainy, old, bad picture of somebody?
Apparently Coleman Allen.
That's weird. I mean, if he really wanted it done right, that's really just, that's not even providing the right information. I mean, the chances of him killing the wrong person were pretty high.
Yeah. Could have been almost anybody. I mean, it could have even been a neighbor of Peggy Wengert's if they went the right way.
Exactly. Because, yeah, he doesn't really know who he's looking for.
Kathy Berry recalled, "It was a relief, but at the same time, it was the worst kind of scenario because we had nothing to do with his business. Somebody killed Jane thinking she was somebody else. Are you kidding? This is what actually happened." In 1998, Paula Leen was convicted of the shooting of James Wengert and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Also in 1998, at the age of 43, Leonard Mundy was convicted of brutally killing Jane Carver and was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Justin Carver exclaims, quote, "It's pretty frustrating for us that Allen wasn't alive to see his day in court. I feel for Mundy to this day. He was in a tough spot and had to make a stupid decision that cost him his life and cost us our mom. End quote.
What a wonderful human being that he feels anything but hate for this man.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good kid.
Had that little bit of empathy, realizing the whole situation.
Right?
Coleman Allen was apparently on probation for attacking one of his debtors with a pipe. There were also tips and files that led to speculation that Allen killed Barry J. Skolnick in a Hollywood parking garage that January. Skolnick had also borrowed money from Premium Commercial. He was 30 years old when he was shot to death. A life insurance policy had been taken out for Skolnick in the amount of $2.5 million, with Coleman Allen as the beneficiary. Allen was 57 when he died of heart disease. So that's another reason Allen being on probation, he's asking these other people that have borrowed money to do. And why Peggy, by filing this lawsuit, all this stuff's going to come up. I mean, all of his records and that he's on probation and all of his fraudulent practice, all of this is going to start coming up. So now you can kind of see why he's sending these people.
Well, I understand what he's trying to hide, but, you know, it's pretty sad when anybody can go put $2.5 million worth of life insurance on somebody they're not related to, have nothing to do with. I mean, it's just motivation for murder.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're allowing this to happen. Did this guy collect on these policies?
I didn't see anything about him getting any payouts on these insurance policies.
That's crazy.
He was actually referred to as pure evil. You can totally see the truth in that.
Yeah. I mean, he just pretty much put a price tag on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
This one, this one's going to be worth this much. This one's going to, and then he just went out and collected or had other people do it for him. He wasn't even decent enough to do it himself. He had to make other people do his dirty work.
Skolnick, who he actually did shoot and kill, $2.5 million in the 90s. Wow.
A lot of money.
A lot of money.
A lot of money right now.
Captain Murray reflects, quote, I think the key to solving this case was the community, the citizens of Fountain Valley that kept Jane's memory alive. And because of that, led us to think, is there a relation between the San Clemente shooting and Jane's murder? End quote. Jane's family, friends, co-workers, and community wanted to remember her in a lovely and positive way. Jane loved to run and education, so they held a marathon in Jane Carver's name. Even Al Carver ran in it. It was an enormous success. There were 1,200 people that entered, and they raised $75,000 that was given to students that needed scholarships so they could go on to college. I think that's just an amazing way to remember her.
That is an amazing way to remember her. I mean, it sounds perfect, and had she been here, it would have meant the world to her.
Absolutely. While I was looking up information, I started looking at Al Carver just out of curiosity. The one thread that I read over and over again was, quote, Al Carver is the spouse of expired Fountain Valley inhabitant Jane Carver. The 46-year-old airline steward was apparently shot in the face and killed while getting back from her morning run, end quote. I can't imagine that if somebody looks up your name that you're known as the husband of this poor woman. That just saddens me. I mean, the whole thing saddens me, but the fact that that's your association.
Their whole relationship was beautiful and a success, and this is what it boils down to. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That really is sad. I feel bad for that guy.
I did too. One of the quotes from, I believe it was Justin, was saying that the one thing that has come out of it is the Al and the two boys have gotten closer. They've now obviously got married, have grandchildren, and they're living life to the fullest at this point. And he even said that he's positive their mom would be thrilled, which was sweet.
Wow. Very sweet.
Clifford Carver, Jane's son, feels, quote, it's never 100% better, but it's just a little bit easier as time goes on, end quote.
This is an amazing family. I mean, wow, the positivity after everything that's happened.
Yeah.
I admire that greatly. I don't know that I'd be this together if something like this happened to me.
I think a lot of it is they had the community and her friends. She had so many friends that really backed them, and to watch the community come together for their mother and their wife.
Right.
It is inspiring. In a horrific situation, it is so inspiring.
They're turning a tragedy around, and attaching something good to it.
Exactly.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
So that's the story of Jane Carver.
Wow, great story. Thank you for sharing.
Well, thanks for taking my hand and following along.
Thanks for dragging me, thanks for having us skip through the whole thing.
Dragging you along, bouncing,
kicking and screaming. Smiling and enjoying.
Such a goober.
We just want to thank you all for listening. Don't forget to have fun, take care, and let your imaginations run wild.
Bye.
We just want to thank you all for sharing your time with us. And if you'd like to send in your creepy little grim bits, we would love to hear your personal stories, interests, and suggestions. Please email them to grimwitwithdimwits@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at grimwitwithdimwits, Twitter at grimwitwithdimwits, and Facebook, Grimwit with Dimwits. Join us every Monday for new episodes, and feel free to share us with your grim-loving friends.
We would really appreciate if you would take a minute to rate and review. 5-star ratings go a long way and would really help us out. Until then, we would love it if you'd come back next week to delve with us into the strange and unusual things we just can't wrap our skulls around.